Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of meetings of the Township Council established and adopted by the Township Council, which schedule designated the time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. We are using an electronic amplifying and recording device, and in order to obtain an audible and clear record, we request that all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly into the microphone. The recording device is to be solely utilized by the Township Clerk's office for the preparation of the minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meetings. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Present.
Ms. Grace? Here. Mr. Munoz?
Here.
Mrs. Stubbs? Mrs. Winter? Here. Mrs. Strato?
Here.
Mr. Mercado?
He is not here this evening.
Mr. Garlinger?
Here.
Mr. Curtis?
Here.
Mr. Lechner? Chief Harkins?
Here.
Mr. Chadwell?
Here.
Thank you. We will now have our first public portion. This public portion shall be for agenda items only. Anyone addressing council may speak one at a time. Once all those wishing to address council have had their turns, they may address council a second time only if it adds to what was said earlier. 3 minutes for each person, 15 minutes total for this public portion. Anybody for agenda items only, right?
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidoro from the Historic Village of Ariel. Resolution R21-04-121. It's about some work to be done to the library. It also looks like Triad Associates will be drafting what looks like a grant to get some funds for that. I'm wondering if Council is aware of what type of fees that we would be paying Triad. Now, I did a little bit of work to look up what their function are, what the function of Triad is. Some of the items that they work on for state and federal program services, abandoned and affordable homes, ADA compliance, bicycle pedestrians, landscape and streetscapes, parks and recs, enterprise zones, green acres, open space, home investment partnership, economic development, all the things that a government would probably utilize. They seem to be the new kid on the block for Gloucester Township. It looks like they do this in quite a few places. The difference being that a lot of places have not seen the frequent tax increases that we have. And as you folks being the custodians of our tax dollars, which includes grants, which are our tax dollars by other means, if this council, this body is aware what type of fees we're paying. Now, it does look like Triad drafts and puts together the language for the application, but it looks like their suggestion is that we apply for the grant and they would draft that. What is council aware of what we're paying them in fees?
So at the last workshop, the council approved not to exceed on each of the projects. It was the library application, and then it was the applications for two playground structures under Green Acres. There was an amount in that document that said not to exceed that amount. That's what council did a straw poll.
Okay.
If I recall correctly, the library grant was somewhere around 15,000, maybe 17,000. And I think the both Green Acres grants for the playground was approximately 9,925 each.
Okay. It's clear to me that the administration knows. My question went to council, and council redirected to the administration. I was curious, do you guys cast a vote?
They
And,
had the proposals in front of them.
but my question, and no disrespect, Tom, but the question was addressed towards council. Council redirected back towards the administration. I was curious as to whether council knew what type of fees we pay Triad for these services. Basically, the draft, to do the written language for the draft, for that.
If you're
Right.
asking why I directed it to Tom, because I don't bring the information with me week to week, so if we discussed it last week, I had the information in front of me.
And it was a general question, not direct, as to what type of fees that we're paying Triad.
We verbalized those fees at the meeting.
Yes,
And this is kind of agenda related. In the past, standing in the back, I had asked council if you guys could get a little closer to the microphones. We did find out that those tabletops do not move. It is difficult to understand and hear you. Both the audio is down, and with wearing the mask, it's difficult. I had expected to take delivery today. I have these mask protectors, the plastic thing you've seen on TV. I had intended, I bought 20 of them, and I was going to hand them out to you guys. At least it would let us understand you a little better, because as you can tell, you can speak more clearly with this thing over the mask, and you're not speaking up against the mask. But until they come in and I get them to you, would you mind getting close and bring your microphones to you, so that for the evening and leading into the next meeting that you're going to be discussing the budget, that everybody can be heard very clearly. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
What did you just say, Rick? I didn't hear that last thing you said.
You're funny.
They heard them in the back.
Anybody else for agenda items only? Seeing none, I'll close the first public portion. Tonight, we are recognizing Kelly Hillias of Blenheim, New Jersey, for the Fall Winter Photo Contest. She was our winner. We have the picture right up there up front. If you have a minute at the end, please take a look at it. But congratulations to Kelly Hillias of Blenheim. We now have the consent agenda. Any council person wishing to remove anything or have any questions, please do so.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Roll call?
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs? Yes. Mrs. Turner? Yes. Mrs. Trevor?
Yes. Okay. GTE Gov. Bear with me. I don't have my glasses on. Or with me. I don't know. Yours might be worse. Try. Here you go. That's what I mean. All right.
I'm blind now.
Well, they work well there. Thank you.
You're not giving back.
All right, our first question was from Jade Hicks of Clementon. Her question was, does Gloucester Township allow tiny houses? And if so, what are the restrictions? I know that this question was turned over to Ken Lechner's office. Dave, you or Tom don't have anything to add to that, right?
No, I defer to the planner, Ken Lechner, as to whether or not there are any restrictions against the tiny houses. I guess it really was not imagined anything, but he would be better to answer that.
Okay, which we did turn that email over to his office. All right, and our next question is from Denise Coyne. And that one, there's multiple questions, but one, please explain Township Council's justification for spending the Affordable Housing Trust Fund money to purchase Block 12301, Lot 4, from the Gloucester Township Housing Authority in 2012 for the purpose of working with the GTHA to provide affordable housing, and then approving a deal in January of this year, which allows the GTHA to use additional affordable housing trust fund money to buy back that same lot from Gloucester Township for the purpose of working with the Gloucester Township to provide affordable housing. The second question was, Mr. Carlemere stated at the council workshop meeting on January 11th and also at the GTHA meeting on January 12th that the plan for Block 12301, Lot 4, is for senior veterans and affordable family housing. Yet at the council meeting on March 22nd and the council workshop meeting on April 12th, he stated that the plan is for veterans, senior, and senior housing. The current and previous redevelopment plans include family affordable housing. Please clarify if the plan for Block 12301, Lot 4 includes family affordable housing and how the deed restriction affects that plan. Question 3, was a title search done on Lot 12301, Lot 4, prior to the township purchasing it from the GTHA in 2012? If so, was the deed restriction noted? 4, Presidential Title Agency did a county search and examination as part of the redevelopment plan for Lakeland Phase 1 in 2018. Did this search reveal the deed restriction? 5, why was the deed restriction not noted on the deed which was drawn up in 2012 for Block 12301, Lot 4? And lastly, 6, what is the current status of this deal? Have any details of the plan changed since Mr. Carlemere presented it on January 11th and 12th?
So let me start from the number 6.
Go ahead.
Current status is the handling of that transaction is with special counsel Vince Cerise from Mr. Griner on behalf of the township, and the housing authority is represented by the Dakotas firm. That's the firm that represents the housing authority. Initially, my office prepared the documents from the redevelopment entity naming the housing authority as the redeveloper of that project. And then with the conditions and restrictions in there that dealt with senior veterans, senior housing, and those kind of things. The contract, as I understand, has not been signed. That would implement the acquisition. And the attorneys are still negotiating and modifying all the agreements that were sent over for their own particular choices. So that's still up with negotiations. So I don't know where that is. It's now being handled by special counsel. Now, number 5 says, why was the deed restriction not noted on the deed when it was drawn in 2012? The deed restriction came out of the county when they deeded it for $1 to Gloucester Township Housing Authority for Gloucester Township Housing Authority's development. When they were developing it, their plan was affordable housing. So the county felt that was the best use of the ground. They deeded it for $1. That deed restriction goes from the grantor to the grantee in that deed. If there's a subsequent deed that's transferring, as there was here, the reports of title raise those deed restrictions as permanent restrictions. It doesn't have to be entered and noted in each subsequent deed, because what will happen is the beneficiary of the first deed restriction is the county of Camden. County of Camden is the grantor to the grantee, which is the housing authority. That deed said the housing authority must do X, affordable housing. So that's a deed restriction that first appeared. When anyone, private or government or anyone, transfers subsequent deeds, they become the grantor. They're not carrying that deed restriction for their benefit. The person buying it will get a title insuring policy, and that title insuring policy, it says it's limited to the deed restriction, subject to the deed restriction. If you're buying this property, you're subject to that deed restriction. That deed restriction continues on until whoever the beneficiary of the deed is removes it, waives it, does another deed, releases it. So it does not have to be continually put into a chain of title. The presidential title doing number 4, the county examination I don't know anything about that. They might just ask for an examination of what the status was, and just an update on, what's out on that property. I don't have any knowledge about that. So, with the title search done in 2012, when the township purchased it, yes, my recollection, I haven't looked at that file. If that file was purchased, it was either through American Title out of Washington Township, or at that time, it could have been Southern County or Brennan. We use Brennan Title today, we just changed this company. So it was either one of those two companies, but I'm sure that title search was done and title insurance was granted. There's what they call the HUD transaction that references all the fees and costs, and all those things that's after the sale were reported to the Council on Affordable Housing at that time. Number 2, which talks about senior, veteran, and affordable housing. In our initial plan on our settlement agreement to meet our fair share housing plan for Gloucester Township and justify that with Council on Affordable Housing, that's how the first existing plan was drawn with the township. It talked about affordable housing, and it talked about veterans. As years go through, we had to do our accounting to the Council on Affordable Housing, which no longer exists, so now we're before the Superior Courts on this, and I took jurisdiction of that. In that plan that we're negotiating today, we're talking about senior housing, veterans house, senior housing, and senior housing. That's what we're promoting. Council on Affordable Housing has, the Fair Share Housing Plan has agreed to that. The objectives of the plan, and basically everybody's in agreement. So that plan, when the courts open up, if that gets approved, it's going to talk about meeting our COLA obligation by providing veterans, senior, and senior housing on that project. Okay?
Will that comply with the deed restriction?
Well, we're going to have to look at that. My sense is it would, because we're still dealing with affordable housing. Whether it's veterans affordable housing or senior affordable housing, we're still dealing with that element of affordable housing as far as our plan.
If the county were to consent to that being affordable housing, would that be sufficient?
Yes. Yeah. So question number 2, there's a 10-year difference between what drove the township to take action in 2012. My only recollection is there were several developers out there that were in 2012 or prior thereto that were seeking funding, federal funding, state funding, to acquire property, to meet that municipality's affordable housing. And I guess the township back then thought, okay, we have a lot of developers knocking on our door. We'll take title to that property. We'll deal with those developers.
We actually chose a conifer.
Conifer, you're correct. So that conifer and money tightened up, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, they were no longer able to secure funding, so those transactions died.
They changed the formula for the points, and as a result, we were hurt, and our application didn't receive as many points. And if my recollection serves me, in order to file an application, we had to have the land in the township's name.
Okay.
That's why it was transferred.
So now transferring it back to the housing authority, they put their company as their executive director now, and the way the housing authority is moving. The sense is that I see that if it's in the hands of the housing authority with the current executive director, it's not just an individual any longer, it's a firm that's representing the housing authority as their required executive director. They have a lot of avenues and resources for development. They have people that they know that they can reach out to and focus on developing those 10 acres. And that was one of the initial initiatives to send it back to the housing authority.
Madam President, can I ask a question or two?
Yes, go ahead.
Is it possible that we could avoid transferring this to the housing authority and elect to develop it ourselves?
Well,
with the conifer or with an entity such as that? Can we do that now?
The program's no longer available, so it was a program based on tax credits. If I'm not
correct,
mistaken.
correct.
So what are our options right now with this property? If those programs are not available, what do we do with the property?
Well, you
Can we deed it for $1 to the housing authority?
you can, if you choose to.
Is there any benefit to doing that?
I can't answer that, I haven't analyzed that, whether there's a benefit to feed it to them for $1. But one of the things that we talked about, if I recall, is once it goes back to the housing authority, the housing authority through its executive director is trying to coordinate a developer of that project. One of the thoughts that came up is that the housing authority then can remain in the driver's seat, so to speak, to say, okay, part of our transaction to deed this over to you, developer, to develop it, is the housing authority wants to be the management arm. But you gotta remember, when they developed Senior Campus One, and the private company that built it, the housing authority is the management arm, so they generate revenue for the housing authority.
So in summary, what happens is the county deeds it to the housing authority for $1.
Correct.
Housing authority sells it to the township because we have the ability under these programs to do something with it.
Correct.
They did, right?
Correct,
Now, we have that these programs they don't exist anymore.
correct. It's not there to say
So
that
we're gonna try and utilize this asset to the best we possibly can and transfer it to the housing authority, who is going to be able to do something with the affordable housing plan that is currently waiting in courts.
Correct, because that 10 acres now, as we negotiated with our initial plan that we're going to propose, deals with those 10 acres as meeting our affordable housing plan.
So the question comes down to, is it appropriate to transfer for $1 or for fair market value? That's what it really comes down to.
I think
As a
transfer,
municipality with taxpayer money,
well, it's COA dollars.
$1.
It's not taxpayers' money. COA dollars are generated by developers for commercial property. And with commercial property, as they develop it, you generate 2.5% of the cost back to the town that goes into the COA fund. When a developer comes in and builds homes, residential, that developer on each lot, when it gets a CO for a home, pays 1.5% into the COA fund. So it's not taxpayers' dollars in a sense. So then, as you accumulate that, you want to find ways of spending it to assure, so that's been done.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Good questions. Okay, that was it for the eGov questions. We'll now have the second public portion, which can be on any item the public chooses to address to Township Council. Anyone addressing council may speak one at a time. All those wishing to address council have had their turns. They may address council a second time. There's a 5-minute speaking limit for each person and a half-hour max limit. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Council. Brian Burns again from Ariel. I'm just here to check up on the status of the Riseland Bridge closing on this property. I do have an email dated April 13th from Ken Lechner. Ken says his planning department is waiting on an updated boundary survey and that the title binder deed, Green Acres language and contract should come from the legal department. So I just wanted to see what the status of this is. This has been an ongoing thing. I have correspondence here going all the way back to 2017.
I spoke with Samos. Yeah, I spoke with Mr. Samos today, this afternoon. We talked about the liens that are on there, which were tax liens privately held by third party. And he indicated to me that he has sent over to the legal department and tax office. He wanted to know who he would deal with in the tax office. Proof that those liens have been satisfied. What happens is the third party has to then release that lien of record. So if it's showing up on the title report, that means as far as the township is concerned, it has not been paid or released yet. So we're following up on that. The second thing, I spoke to him about the deed requirement. He has already addressed that, and that deed is probably going to be sent into Marianne Coyle office, legal department office, and then it'll be sent over to Green Acres. So the things are coming together. He has, that was tied up in an estate, so he has a court order directing which parties are to sign, because one of the things that was holding it up is we didn't know who was going to be the actual person of authority to sign those deeds, because it was in an LLC and it was in the state of Mo. So he has a court order, he was telling me, that directs who's going to sign those deeds, and that should satisfy the title company that's going to be insuring the title as it transfers. So everything's starting to move and come in.
Because Terry Caruso, who is the Camden County agent for Green Acres, she's retiring in June. And I just have concern that if she leaves in June, whoever she handles this case to, it doesn't have to start all over again. Do you think it could be possibly closed by the end of May?
I can't say that for sure. I won't want to say that mislead you. It should be if everything is in. If all the title issues are satisfied, I believe Ken Lechner's report is that funding is available. As soon as Green Acres passes on everything, they want to see that deed. They want to see the title report that everything is clear, so they know that they're transferring funds. It's going to be properly transferred title. Once those things happen, they release their dollars and the closing can take place.
Right, I don't think the impediments have anything to do with the town.
Yeah.
I think it's the other piece.
I understand. I do appreciate the efforts, because
I'm confident it's going to come in. I just can't tell you what happened by May.
right now, I did have an email from your secretary that an agreement of sale was executed.
Correct.
And I'm not quite sure what that term agreement of sale means.
Well, the parties entitled, the agreement of sale was signed some time ago. Then there was a state got involved, I forget all the mechanics of those times. But the agreement of sale was signed a long time ago, transferring. Then Mr. Samos, who's also a family member, and their attorney, kind of took over, and we verified the signing of the agreement, then we started the title. Once you start, you're paying dollars for that title report. So all those things were reported, and now he's addressing every one of those, and properly so. He's satisfying every one of those exceptions that show up as a lien on the title.
Obviously, Ken is not here to speak, but we have been communicating with the Helen Hayes, who also has an adjacent property to Rosalind Bridge property. And I, just for the sake of being here and getting on public record, I'd like to see council approve that additional property because, like I said many times, this is the core ecological area that is left undeveloped in Gloucester Township. There's bits and pieces here and there, but this is a really large tract of ground and it has, the endangered plant species and has an ecology all of its own. It's incredibly rare. And there's $1.6 million available from Green Acres in this round of funding. That Terry would like to see the proposals to use that money by the time she retires in June.
So I know Ken Lechner, I saw some of his email that he was reporting on that case. I haven't seen anything on that to the law department. But I will tell you, I can't tell you when it's going to happen, but I don't see any impediment that will prevent Rosalind Bridge acquisition because everything now seems to be falling into place.
Does anyone on council, perhaps Tom or Mr. Calumere, know anything about what's going on with the former Freeway Golf Course? Plans for that? No, nothing's been submitted or?
It's a company that buys land a lot around here.
It's Black Horse Properties owns it.
Yeah, what's the name? Do you remember? Didn't they also own where Lakeland is, at the corner of Lakeland and
I can't remember the gentleman's name, right? I know who you're referring to.
and they acquired Corsini?
All right, so as of right now, the planning board hasn't reviewed anything, hasn't looked at anything.
For the golf course?
Yes.
Nothing that I know of by conversation.
They have a history of just buying land and holding it.
Okay, thank you for your time, council.
Thank you.
AP Construction.
Maybe.
Yeah, AP.
Denise?
Denise Coyne, Shoes Landing Road. Good evening. Thank you for attempting to answer my questions. Question number one asked for justification for spending the Affordable Housing Trust Fund money. I didn't get a response to that.
Justification for spending.
The Housing Authority,
When we purchased it,
the Housing Authority used it to purchase I mean, the township used it to purchase, and the housing authority used it.
Well, I thought Tom and I addressed why the township purchased it back in 2012.
I don't-
Was the opportunities that the township would have.
Yeah, you addressed that, but not the justification for spending the Affordable Housing Trust Fund money.
Because it had value and we had the dollars to buy it.
Okay, but the Affordable Housing Trust Fund money was used twice to purchase the same piece of land.
Prior to 2012.
The
Give it
housing
to the-
authority.
Give it to the housing authority for $1.
No,
It wasn't by the county?
I have the agreement of sale right here. It was not.
That's not what I
The agreement of sale was dated the 26th of October, 2006, between the County of Camden and the Housing Authority for Block 12301, $600,000.
Not my understanding. My understanding was
We'll look
$1.
into it, okay? Please do.
$600,000. You want to see it?
I'll take it.
Because I think they were.
Is that a copy?
I'd like it back.
All right.
But it still doesn't justify the use of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund money to buy the land twice.
Well, they wouldn't have had yeah, they wouldn't have had the access to the affordable.
No, rather than guess.
I'm
let's
just- Okay, but I've asked this question over and over and over and over and over again, and I can't get an answer.
Denise, they're looking at it,
Who's looking at it?
Denise?
What?
I don't want to do this again. We don't have to argue.
I'm not arguing. I'm asking questions that I'm not getting answers for.
They're
If
gonna
I
look at
can
it.
just step in for a moment, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So you're asking from the passing in 2006, which is not on question one, 2006, 2012?
In 2012, Affordable Housing Trust Fund money was used, almost $735,000.
That we agree on.
Okay, and then for this transaction, they want to use $892,000 of Affordable Housing Trust Fund money to purchase the same piece of ground.
Denise, my concern is that you were asking about a 2006 and 2007 transaction, which wasn't in your April 18th thing. He has the document, he's looking at it right now. If he's made mistakes, Mr. Carlin, can you just make sure you get, your effort was good, but I want you to double check.
And I also don't know where the $600,000 came from. That could have been from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund also.
I'm scanning this quickly and I don't see $600,000.
Page 3 or 4.
And I spoke with Steve Bach, who was involved intimately with that transaction and that process. He told me he distinctly recalls it was for $1.
That may be the case, that may be what he recalls, that may be what everybody recalls, but Denise is sitting here saying that's not the case, and I want to find out.
First I've heard it.
It does say on page 4, the agreement is $600,000 payable on delivery of the deed. But it's not my recollection or not my understanding that the housing authority paid $600,000.
But we can check it, right?
There was also 2 mortgages, one for $200,000 and one for $400,000, total $600,000. So it was $600,000, but that's neither here nor there. The whole point is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund money is supposed to be used to pay for affordable housing so the taxpayers don't have to. It's not supposed to be used to purchase a piece of property twice.
Well, so don't hold me to this one, but I see mortgage finance, New Jersey Mortgage Financing Agency. The authority shall obtain funding through the Mortgage Finance Agency to construct 75 senior rental units. So there is an arm of the housing authority, which is their finance arm, as you know. Members on that finance arm is a mirror of the housing authority. And then you have the nonprofit agencies that are involved with the current senior campus 1 housing that really borrow the money and put up the money. So maybe that's where it came from. The only thing I can see.
Can we check to see the COLA fund, we have an escrow account for the COLA fund, right?
Yeah.
Okay, can we look back into the time period question and see if money went from the COLA fund to this deal
Christie, would
in
you
2006?
determine that, going back and forth to
We should be able to.
2006, to the audits?
Okay, well, it definitely did in 2012.
Well, we're gonna find out in 2006, because you're stating the fact that it happened, and
My
There might be a
recollection recalls me, I believe that it was the first transaction was, and I would have to, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that the Cohen Trust Fund was set up in 2007, if my recollection is correct. And I do not believe that there was we paid 600,000 in 2006.
I'll
I
give
believe
you-
the
I'll give
first
you-
one was in
so, but Denise's
2012,
point
but
is,
I will double check.
Denise's point is that she believes that COA funds were used in 2006 or 2007, and that COA funds were used in 2012 on the same piece of property. And now we're looking to sell the property and utilize COA funds. So I think we have to drill down. We have to figure out if the first transaction was in fact out of COA. If not, were any money's used? And then, I think that Dave explained, Denise, that we're sitting on a piece of property right now. Things didn't work out as everybody wished them to work out. What do we do with this piece of property? If the housing authority can use it, should we put it to the best use? That's where it comes down to.
Okay, but the agreement all along has been that the housing authority was going to manage the use of this property. That was the agreement all along. The housing authority and the township were going to work together. The housing authority is a government entity. It is a municipal entity. It's part of this municipality. It is part of the dealings of this township. If the township and the housing authority were going to work together in 2012, and now the township and the housing authority are going to work together in 2021, why do we have to sell a piece of property back and forth to make that happen?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, the housing authority, there's a corporation, right? Correct. Can you enlighten us on what the housing authority is?
Well, the housing authority itself is appointed by the governing body. And they have a charge for really that project. For that project, it has other properties around Gloucester Township that goes way back. Housing authority's been in existence for longer than I got involved with Gloucester Township. So what happened prior to that, I can't tell you, but they were involved for a while. When this project started, they were represented by a law firm, they had an auditing firm, they had an executive director, which they're required to, and they came up and recommended that they form a housing finance court. So that, when they formed the housing finance court, that took care of all the financing of the project for the housing authority, senior campus 1, and the projected forward to the next 5 acres and then the next 5 acres. That was their function. The concern was who was going to be the finance arm, and the understanding was, under attorneys back then, that the finance arm, this finance corporation, would be a mirror image of the housing authority, so that everybody was still in function. And I know you're not seem to be satisfied with those answers, but I wasn't the attorney representing the housing authority when that was formulated and why they formed the housing court.
Who is
The
it?
house-
Who owns the housing finance court?
The housing
the
authority.
housing authority, the finance court.
The housing authority owns the finance court.
Who owns those buildings over there?
The housing authority, but there's all that financing arm, and I'm not even going to attempt to try to answer. I can tell you what my thoughts are, but then they get this.
I have it right here.
So I can't tell you until it's a lot of documents.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, I'm just trying to give some clarity to other
Right here.
people in the audience.
Because you probably can get better answers before the housing authority meeting. Their firm should have access to all those documents and answer the questions.
What do you got?
All right, I'm gonna let Christie answer the question, and then in the interest of others in the audience, Denise, your time is up, but, we'll see where we get at the end, but go ahead, Christie.
I did pull up the transactions for the housing authority on their phone. And the first transaction, the money we received was in 2003. That was the first time that was when we opened it up. There was no transactions to the housing authority for $600,000 that was paid through the township out of the affordable housing.
Okay, but in 2012 there was, and now you want to do it again for $892,000, so.
But Denise, I'm not satisfied that, I'm, with all due respect to Christie, I think we need to give this question a little bit more hunt. We need to figure out if any money went to the Housing Authority from that 12 fund in 2006. I know you're looking at that, but I'm not satisfied.
No, I agree, Dan. I think
Okay,
it's
but there's a
also-
deal on the table now, in 2021, where you want to use $892,000 out of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
That's not happening this year, is it?
Okay,
It's not signed now, and
Can
that's,
we just,
I'm sorry.
guys, can we just
Yes.
table this to allow others? Denise, let us see where we get with the time. Obviously, this is an ongoing conversation, so we will continue that. Thank you. Paul?
Evening, Council. Paul Krug, Blackwood Estates. I just want to say, as an objective third party watching Denise over the last several months, including dating back to the eGov questions that she submitted on this same topic. This goes back, this line of questioning, in my recollection, at least 3 months. So I think at this point in time, to say we need to look at it, we need to continue to research it, starting to get a little bit long in the tooth.
I think we're about one question shy of answering everything.
And as I pointed out in my email to yourself and Ms. Grace, you had asked Denise to send you an email with those questions from the last meeting. I didn't know. She did. I didn't know if she would. So I also did. And you know, my main question was why the same 10-acre lot is being bought and sold using Affordable Housing Trust Fund monies in both instances between two entities that are supposed to be working jointly to provide affordable senior housing. Now, the explanation for that, which is it was transferred to Gloucester Township because Gloucester Township had certain opportunities via programs, okay? And now Mr. Carlemere has said that the Housing Authority has certain abilities because a firm has been put in place. So I assume they have expertise and resources. If I may address Ms. Grace, since she's the liaison to the Housing Authority. Ms. Grace, is that true? Do they have more?
I told you last time that
This is
she
what
didn't have
I listened, it's okay. I heard him answer most of the questions on here, I keep hearing a repeat of questions. Now, I'm hearing that 2003 is coming up, so she's gonna give, us a chance to look back, because only 2012 is in the question. So, again, it was asked to put in the email so that we can respond to it. How do you come to the podium and then ask a question that's not in the email?
More disturbing, Paul, is you're playing gotcha here. Okay,
So-
she's new to council. Okay, she told you last council meeting that they haven't been meeting. Okay, you're going to ask her and put her on the spot tonight, where you can simply ask a question to the liaison. She could bring it to the Housing Authority and answer what programs they have and what their capabilities are that are unique. Don't you think that's a better way of handling it?
Dan, I want to be brutally honest.
Okay.
I don't know how things work at Inspire or at your law firm. If I'm in my boardroom and I say to my leadership team on a topic that they've been asking on, I don't have an answer, kick the can, they're going to throw me out of the boardroom. That's how things work in the industry I'm in. You bring the answers, you bring them clear, and you bring them concise. It's as simple as that.
And
If the problem is dealing here, the answers are typically muddied, or we continue to say, I don't have the paperwork, even though the question was asked last meeting. We need more time. We'll look into it. And just, I specifically listened to what you said and sent you the questions.
Paul, is there a question or
Yes, I was trying to understand through our liaison whether or not there
Okay,
is
well, I
true
think- All right,
expertise.
I understand, and I was very aware of the last meeting where it was stated how she was just starting to attend these meetings and learn. I think we're all doing the best we can, learning the information and gathering information. Is there a point to what you would, is there something additional that you'd like to ask, or are we just gonna keep continuing around in a circle here about not getting the answers you want?
Because all of these questions, I heard the answer. So,
And I agree, so,
So once again, my question was, does the housing authority now have expertise that would allow them to develop this property, of which only 75 units have been delivered over 11 years, and there are supposed to be 300?
I think that question is not supposed to be answered by the liaison when they have not had meetings that she could attend. I think it's an unfair question.
But also, I think we tried to say, myself as well as Tom, that over the last 10, 12 years, funding has not been available to develop that type of project. It's costly to develop that type of project. I don't know how much they spent for the units they have now, but the pattern that Senior Campus 2 and Senior Campus 3 is costly. And what they look for, these companies that are going to build it, because township can't build it, housing authority can't build it, you get the companies that have the expertise to do that, and they've been doing it all over. They get their funding through grants and other things that are available. Over the last 12 years or more, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, that has dried up. That funding has not been out there. That's why the housing authority never went into Senior Campus 2 and Senior Campus 3, would be my assessment as to why it hasn't happened. Now, and every time something came up that afforded an opportunity to do that, we tried to do it. And from what we're seeing now, in talking with representatives of the housing authority and the executive director firm that they have now, it's not just one individual that was there for years. We now have a firm that has reaching out throughout the state and government and other areas that they think they can come up with some projects and funding. That's what they're going to try to do, and that's what's the difference between 2012 and 2021.
So Paul, do you expect Carolyn to come back here and be able to recite the audit for the housing authority and the intricacies of that? I'm curious.
I'm just asking
No, I'm
if the
sure.
liaison
He's an
knows
attorney.
if there's
He's a
expertise
solicitor.
here
He's an
today.
attorney, Paul. He can answer the type of question that you're asking. Okay. She's not an accountant. She is not going to be able to recite the intricacies of an audit. Do you understand that? And how unfair your question is. And this is not the first time you've done that.
A question about expertise of the housing authority? You're certainly downplaying Miss Grace's ability to do her job. I'll tell you that much.
in all due respect, gentlemen, can we please move along here? We're not getting anywhere on an answer. Clearly,
Sure.
we're not giving Paul the answer he wants, and we're not getting. In the interest of time, your time is up. We do have others that wish to speak. Go ahead, you can
I
answer,
just
and then
want
that's
to
it.
know if, because I like, thank you for answering all the questions. Are you satisfied with questions 1 through 6 on this page because they were all answered?
Number one, no. And number one is the same question that I emailed as my main question.
But you are satisfied with questions 2 through 6?
Relatively, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Ray?
Good evening, council. Ray Polidoro from Ariel. First, I'd like to say congratulations to Police Officer Joseph Thompson and retirement on Nico, and wish the Thompson family great success with their new family member. Mr. Hutchinson said something interesting more than once, yes. And that was, what are the prospects, instead of using a tremendous amount of trust fund money for what is intended to be affordable housing, and those that would benefit from those funds, instead of wasting it back and forth. I use the term wasting. You can use whatever terminology you wish. But Mr. Hutchinson said the possibility of deeding it back for $1. Okay, if that is possible, and we're not just talking about the property bouncing back and forth from one entity to another. We're talking about a great amount of money. That money is intended to help people. It's intended to help folks that need to get into an affordable house and affordable home in a very expensive township. And it's being wasted away on whack-a-mole with a piece of property. So if the township has the prospect of deeding it back for $1, and you're going to go back and forth about $1 from the county versus $600,000, if the bill of sale was presented and it clearly states that, we take the money out of the equation. And again, that money is intended for people, for the projects, for those that need that. Maybe take a closer look at that. Back when the township acquired that property, I believe I heard Mr. Cardis mention that it was to an advantage of the township to acquire that property. At the time, there was a point grading system or points that would make it beneficial for the township to act on it.
Right.
And why didn't the township act on it? What happened to it?
We made an application, again through Conifer. Conifer was chosen out of, I believe there were a couple different applicants. So, and I believe we used them also with Revere, Rowan. And that was a successful project under the tax credit program.
Didn't they also do they finished the Lions Head Plaza?
I don't know that. But, so there was a program where the state would issue tax credits. So it was worth it for a builder to make an application on behalf of the township, which they did. And at the time, up in North Jersey, they decided in Trenton to change the point system around. And the money went to a couple towns up in North Jersey. South Jersey was completely ignored. And that was one of the projects that was turned down because the point system as it was changed went against us.
Now, who made that decision? Trenton?
Yeah, I would assume so. I don't know what division.
Yeah, I'm just falling more and more in love with Trenton the more you keep telling me about them. Thank you.
That was under Christie's administration.
Trenton is Trenton. It's the little swamp. But for the most part, we follow their guidelines. We do what they do. We follow their everything. And they're just a bad example. They're terrible. They're terrible. And we follow their guidelines. And I hate it.
Well, state law.
It's guidelines you've mentioned before. And that's not law. That's guidelines. And we follow them. And that's why they call them guidelines. My question is going to be for the liaison to the Housing Authority. And I would wish to know, if I understand it correctly, 2 of the last Housing Authority meetings were canceled and or postponed. Does our liaison know the reason for that? Because obviously we can't get that from the Housing Authority. And at the last direction of counsel and solicitor, that some of the questions that we had at the time be posed to the Housing Authority. And they have not yet since met, and 2 meetings have been canceled. Does our liaison, was she privy to why those meetings were canceled? Okay, and all those members, was that particularly for the reason being that 2 had to quickly resign and we were short for that amount? Okay, and from this day forward, does it appear that did we replace both members? Do we have a quorum for the next Housing Authority meeting? I guess that directed to the, because this body would not know that, correct? As far as you're concerned, for the next meeting, which we don't know is even scheduled yet, will there be a quorum, and there should be no reason for that meeting to be postponed and or canceled? Okay. Would you also check with the Housing Authority to, if they have a time and date for that next meeting, could they get that out to the public as quickly as possible? And again, I just want to reiterate that $1 sure does sound like a good deal, and it would leave a lot of money in place for those for whom it's directed, and it would create this back and forth game with just killing the funds. It's there for a reason. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ray. Anyone else for the public portion? Paul, last 5 minutes.
Thank you, Council President, Vice President. I didn't get a chance to ask about the group who took it upon themselves to take a look at the current budget and appropriations. To the best of my knowledge, President Mercado has not put to this point a subcommittee together for budget and appropriations. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The members who took it upon themselves, is there an update as to where we are
What respectful?
in your audit and review?
Not
Well,
all of it.
we're all able to, I don't know what you mean by group, we're all able to answer, ask questions of the business administrator or to whomever we direct them to. So I'm not sure what you mean by group.
Okay, to be more specific, Councilman Hutchison had mentioned that a group including himself, Councilwoman Grace, and Councilwoman Winters were going to be taking a review and audit of the budget and appropriations for FY21.
So Paul, I want to make clear that I remember last year, some members of the audience grilled certain members of council on when did you meet, all that stuff. I'm not going to engage in that. I'll humor the question right now because I know you're concerned. Last Wednesday, I believe it was, I met with Carolyn Grace, Tom Cardis, Christie, right? In the town hall at 8 a.m. I don't know how long we met, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. This evening, I met with Michelle Winters, Carolyn Grace, Tom Cardis, and Christie again. We met from approximately 6:30, I think it was a little late, till right before the council meeting, and discussed the budget again. I think both sessions were very informative. I hoped to meet twice more with Carolyn and Michelle prior to the budget vote. I'm having a tremendous amount of difficulty carving out time because I'm finishing up my semester. I've got an exam on the 30th, the 5th, I'm going to turn an 18-page paper on the 4th, and I got to argue it on the 8th. So I'm trying my best to get together with them, make sure that any questions they have, we can get answered. Any ideas that they have, we can communicate and discuss with each other.
Is there any specific process being utilized, standardized process being utilized for the audit?
I'm not calling it an audit, so please, let's not use that term. That term is very.
I didn't say you said it. I used
That's
the word
a
audit.
very specific term in accounting. I can tell you right now, this is not an audit. This is a review of the budget. And what I did, since I basically asked these two individuals to get together with me, is I'm treating it as an educational situation for our newest council member, which is why I was a little defensive when you put her on the spot, okay? I think it's completely unfair. But let me, digress. I think it's important that she knows how to look at this budget and make sense of it. It's not easy for somebody who just gets put on council to understand, a $69 million budget, okay? So that's how I'm looking at it. So that's the process.
So it's an educational and training process.
Right.
To bring Ms. Grace up to speed.
Right.
It's not a review looking for cost savings.
I just said it was a review.
Looking for cost savings.
I said it's a review and an educational experience. How would you do it?
Okay, so it is a review looking for cost savings.
I'm doing that as well, yes.
Okay,
And I'm
great.
primarily looking to see, if you want to jump inside my head right now, I'm looking to see if it is a responsible budget by the administration, okay? They have a vision of what that the mayor wants for the town. As a councilman, I believe my role is to determine if it is a responsible budget. Okay, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, the second public portion is now closed. We have polling of directors. Mr. Barber?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Carter?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Wagner? Sorry. Chief Harkins?
Evening, council. We're proud to report, we put out a media release jointly today with Pine Hill Police Department, where we were certified by the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children out of Alexandria, Virginia. We recertified our best practices for those children. We were one of the first in the state of New Jersey and in the area to get it in 2014. We just did a recertification review. So I'm proud to report that we are recertified now for another 5 years. And also just want to inform council, so Wednesday night, I'll be participating in a town hall roundtable discussion with the Camden County prosecutor. She asked me to be on a panel detailing the new use of force guidelines for the state of New Jersey. It's a community. We're going to get questions and answers. There's a panel, and there'll be a way to ask questions directly. So I'm proud to represent us there at Camden County College. It'll be virtual. It'll be able to be seen at 6:30 on this Wednesday night on the Camden County Prosecutor's Office website or any of their social media. So have a good evening.
Thank you. Mr. Temple?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Atchison?
Nothing to report. Thanks for coming.
Ms. Price?
Thank you for coming.
Mr. Minio?
Thank you, Chief, for sharing that news. Thank you all for coming. Everyone, please be safe going home.
Mrs. Stubbs? Thank you for coming, everyone. Be safe. Have a good evening. Mrs. Winters?
I want to thank everyone for coming out in the comments. Just to remind people, as always, please stay safe. There's lots of vaccines available now. It's not the struggle to get it if you wish to do so. There are more appointments and availability. I also want to let everyone know that this is the week that the Gloucester Township Hockey Alliance is doing the national tournament. It was canceled last year, and they get that because the one level, the A team, whoever wins that tournament the year before, hosts the following year. So Gloucester Township won in 2019. So in 20 it was canceled. Now they're hosting in 2021. There are 90 teams participating over 9 days at the hockey rink. So there's lots of people going in and out. There are teams from out of town that are in the area. So it does generate revenue for the town with that happening. I would say go down and watch some games, but they're really restricting the amount of people. It's been put out for people not to go and, just hang out and things like that, just mainly for the people to go with purpose. They are streaming some of the games on their, I don't know how, I'm not techie, so I don't know, however you do that. So it is happening. I just want to let you know that it is something back to some signs of normalcy. So have a good night.
Mrs. Trotter? I failed to kind of give you a little short bio of Kelly, the winner of our photography contest, so I apologize. I want to just give you a little background of who she is. She's a lifelong resident of Gloucester Township. She currently works as a vet tech in Williamstown. Her hobbies include photography, hiking, gardening, and walking her 2 dogs, Mary Jane and Tallulah. Photography has become a passion of hers, especially during this past year. It allows you to get outside and find beauty in this world, even during these difficult times. And this was her first photography contest that she had entered into. Thank you all for coming out and have a good night. With that, the meeting's adjourned. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second? Meeting adjourned. Mr. Brown? No, Mr. Brown.
Put your glasses on.